If you are following Eric, you've found the best coach in the industry. We would struggle to make 80 grand in a month, and now we're at a level where 80 grand will fall out and we're going to close 250 still.
So you were living in your dad's basement, working for another wholesaler in 8 months, $1,500. And Connor got this crazy idea of, I'm going to go do this on my own.
First 4 weeks, you guys had given us everything that we needed. We had 2 acquisitions managers hired that are still with us. And then you guys started teaching us even more. But you guys were just shoving information into our faces like a fire hydrant. We got the team, and then it was like, all right, how do we make them successful?
Yep.
Cool, how do we scale from there? Now you need a dispo guy. Just in those first 90 days, we went from 272,000 in a quarter to like 480 something thousand.
Almost doubled it. But man, when I tell you this dude was an implementer, he would get information, implement, information, implement, information, implement.
You, Tony, Shyla have gone above and beyond what any other coach, I think, does in the industry.
Yeah.
It's absolutely insane. Like hopping on calls to help people close deals or save deals or talk to buyers.
What is going on, y'all? This is Eric Cline with another episode of Refuse to Lose podcast. And I got a special guest, man. I'm going to be showcasing some of the top 1%ers in the industry. And they just so happen to be rolling through my elite coaching community. I got the man, Connor Leary, here all the way from
Omaha, Nebraska.
Omaha, Nebraska, y'all.
Yep.
So super excited to jump into this one. I don't really know his backstory, where he came from prior to wholesaling. So we're going to find out what made this dude bet on himself. And I think it's going to open up a lot of your eyes to, dude, as long as you believe in yourself, anything is possible. Everybody is qualified to do this shit. Like there is no requirement outside of, you just want a better life. You want to get further away from where you're at, or you want to run to a life you ultimately desire to have. And this guy is a true testimony of anything is possible. So Connor, what is up, bro?
What's going on, man?
Dude, welcome to AZ. You've been here a couple times now.
Yep. It's my favorite place to be, man. It's infectious.
A little better than Omaha?
Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah?
A little bit. Yeah.
You think you'll ever move out here?
I think I'll be like one of those snowbirds, you know,
Yeah.
in the winter, come down here and, but man, I don't know, 100-something days straight
It's
of
rough.
triple-digit heat.
It's
pretty
rough.
intense too, you know.
It is, dude, but I'll take that over the winter any day.
Yeah.
I will. That's just
Yeah.
me, though.
Hey, I like the snow as long as you can snowboard on it.
Yeah,
but,
and you can snowboard here.
yeah,
Believe it or not,
right.
you can
Where
snow.
is that at?
I think it's in Flagstaff,
Okay, yeah, Yeah.
Arizona.
nice.
Yeah. Dude,
That's crazy.
introduce these people to who you are.
Yeah, so Connor Leary, I've been in the game for, gosh, well, I started working for another company. That was
Did you?
about 4 years ago, yep. 2021, I think is what it was. So, you know, we do flips, rentals, wholesaling. We started off very local, just in Omaha, Nebraska, just doing flips. They're one of those states with, you know, a lot of regulations against wholesaling. But then we started dropping into virtual markets to supplement the flipping business with assignments and stuff like that.
Love it, dude.
Yep.
So you've been at this for 4 years now.
Yep.
You worked for somebody for how long?
That was for, it's so fun to think back to that because it's just crazy, like how other people ran their operations.
It is.
It was probably about 8-9 months that I
Okay.
worked for them. But dude, I spent the first 5 months just training, never hopped on the phone
For 5 months.
for 5 months. Isn't that crazy?
So you never actually got in the game.
Yeah, for
Really?
5 months I was just training. Yeah.
No shit.
Yep. I'd meet up with, it was, looking back, I mean, I learned a lot.
Of course.
You know, and
that's a lot of training, though.
I made $1,500 in my first 8 months.
Wow.
Yep, got a lot of contracts, but couldn't move any of them really. I think we had like 2 closings for the whole company
Okay.
in like those 8 months, which is crazy. But decided to leave, and like you said, yeah, bet on myself. Before that, oh, go ahead.
What were you doing prior to going and working for somebody for 8 months?
Before that, I was serving tables.
Okay.
I'd been doing that for like 5 or 6 years, and then I was playing college soccer, you know, trying to go pro in that. So
All right. So you were in sports, but
Yep.
outside of sports, you were a waiter.
Yeah.
for 5 years.
Yep.
No,
Yep.
outside of going to somebody's table, getting their order, you didn't really have a whole lot of sales experience.
No, I mean, I was great at talking to people because of that. You know,
Yeah,
I'm very thankful that I did that. I always looked at it as just, you know, you as a server, you're the party of the tape of
yeah,
yeah, you got to give them a good time.
yeah, yeah, for sure.
So I was really great at it. You know, I'd fetch 100% tips like on the regular.
That's great.
Yeah, but yeah, no sales experience at all.
How old are you today?
27. Yeah,
So 27. You jumped into this when you were
like 23.
23 years
Yeah.
old. So you worked for somebody for 8 months, trained for 5 of it,
Mhm.
made $1,500 in 8 months.
Mhm.
And then what made you after eight? And I'm assuming you went from that to saying, I'm going to go do this on my own.
Yeah.
Is that what
100%.
happened?
100%.
Okay.
Yeah.
What made you after 8 months of not having success over there
Right.
and only making $1,500?
Yeah.
Were you still waiting tables at this time or no?
No, I don't think I was.
So in eight, like, what the hell did you do?
Thankfully, and I definitely I owe a lot to my dad too, just because he let me live in his basement,
So
you
you
know?
were living in your
Yeah.
dad's basement, working for another wholesaler in 8 months, 1,500 bucks.
Yeah.
And Connor got this crazy idea of, I'm going to go do this on my own.
Yeah, and you could imagine what my dad's thinking, right?
What did he say?
Oh gosh, I mean, it was I love looking back on that. He's very proud of me.
Of
He's
course.
said it multiple times, but in the beginning, it's great. You know, he's just, you know, you got to get a real job. You gotta, you know, you haven't made any money, and honestly, like first and foremost, it was God.
Yeah,
You know,
for sure.
because when I first started working for that company, I hadn't found God. That owner there, that was probably the greatest thing I've ever gotten from that company was he took me to church. I felt home there, found God, and literally that sermon, I felt like, you know, the pastor was talking directly to me
Mm,
because I was sitting there. I was trying to go pro in soccer, and I was still going to college, and then I would go and work at this company. And so it was like I had these two conflicting things in my
yeah,
life where real estate was the first industry where I felt obsessed with it like I did soccer.
soccer.
Yeah, it was like the first where I was like, "Holy cow, I actually could sit down at a desk and enjoy this type of work."
Hmm.
And I found the proof of concept because I'd be first one in the office at that company and I'd leave at sometimes like 10 p.m. I'd just sit there and watch YouTube videos after YouTube videos of, you know, other just free content on how to
Hmm.
wholesale because obviously the company wasn't succeeding. So I was trying to figure out how we can get more leads,
Yeah,
all of that stuff.
yeah,
So it's really a blessing in disguise, you know,
yeah,
that it didn't go well because I was so obsessed with trying to make it go well for that company.
yeah.
Um,
You were obsessed with it.
100%
Love
obsessed with
that.
this. So then when it didn't work, I was like, honestly, I just dropped everything. I quit soccer. I'd quit college. I'd quit my job. I'm living in my dad's basement. Like I have to make this work,
Mm.
you know?
I was talking about it yesterday, dude. You got to burn the boats.
Have to burn the boats. Yeah. I tell everybody that like it's crazy um how much success you'll find after you do that. Like a
Where
lot of
there's no other option.
yeah. Yeah.
So you go in and you start doing it on your own. Whenever whatever month that was, and then you're in your dad's base. I'm assuming you were working from the basement,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Maybe sometimes head up a coffee shop
Got it.
to get out, but
So how long did it take you, Connor, from going saying I'm going to do this on my own, having no success with this other company, and then you burning the boats at 24 years old,
still 23, yep,
23
but
years
just,
old?
yeah, turned 24
How
halfway through.
long until you got your first deal and it funded, roughly?
It took a while, you know, and I
It's a
was
while.
yeah, I'd say it was 3 or 4 months
Before you got a house under contract or it closed and Connor got
before
paid.
it closed and
Okay.
funded. It was in April, I remember, um, and, man, everything happens for a reason again, like,
Yeah.
thank God, like, all glory there because the first true wholesale that I did one of the guys that I was serving with for 5 to 6 years ended up getting into the real estate space, and we were good friends. So I found this deal. He found the buyer because he knew somebody. That buyer ended up being one of my three or one of my two partners that I have.
Nick
Nick,
or
that was
that's
Nick. So
him.
Nick bought the first wholesale I ever did,
Really?
and then we had like a Shark Tank meeting, like a lunch,
Yeah.
and me and Lee at the time had partnered up and met with him and said, "Hey, this is what we're looking to do," and it was pretty cool. He was like, "Hey, man, like you guys are badass. Like however
Yeah.
much money it takes, let's do it."
Got it. So you got your first deal 4 months. What was your first assignment fee? Do you know? I don't know any of that
Gosh,
shit on
it
my
was
deals.
like, honestly, it was like 30 or 40 grand.
Oh, it was a big one.
Yeah, this is a crazy story too. Just another testament to doing the right thing. It was an in-person appointment. It was there
Yeah.
in Omaha at the time. They hadn't regulated wholesaling, so you could do it willy nilly, and there was no like disclosures or anything like that, and you didn't need a license. But I go over to this lady's house. Bless her heart, she had fell down the stairs, like broke her hips, couldn't walk, so she was only really living in like half of her home,
Mm,
and then she had really like just a lost son that didn't know what he wanted to do in life, so he's just super lazy and would sweep, you know, the dog's droppings into the corner and like letting his mom live like that. It was crazy.
yeah.
I go there. I tell her the price that I had to be at, and she pretty much was just like, "Yep, let's do it." It was really like it wasn't hard. We'd
Right.
already built the rapport and the trust, and
Yeah.
her dog comes up just covered in all sorts of stuff, man. And I felt really bad. She couldn't wash her dog. So after everything was already signed, I took her dog into the sink, gave it a bath, and then left. And then once I left the house, she calls me. I'm not kidding you. I got maybe 3 blocks down the road. She calls me and she goes, "You're just such a nice kid. Um, I just gotta tell you, I don't think this furnace is gonna last that long, so I don't feel comfortable selling it to you at one. I think we were at like 165. She said, I want to sell it to you for 145.
Really?
Yeah. So I went back and literally got a new purchase agreement signed. And I even told her there, I was like, "Are you sure? Because I know we're fine at the price that we're at." She's like, "No,
Wow.
I really think that that's the price that I'm gonna
That
sell it to
don't
you."
happen
It
often.
I was
But when you
mind
wash a
blown.
shitty dog and she sees the heart you got,
I was mind blown.
that's great,
Yeah,
dude.
it was absolutely insane.
Right on, man.
Yep, and then yeah, Nick bought that first deal. Super super easy to dispo.
Love that.
Uh,
So why'd you bet on yourself, man? 23 years old, living in dad's basement, uh, and you went from a waiter to a not making money wholesaler for another guy. What made you at 23? And I think people need to hear this
yeah,
because 23 years old, dude, what I was doing at 23 years old was as reckless as could be.
yeah,
I wasn't thinking about anything that you were doing at that time at 23. I was doing drugs. I was drinking like a sailor, getting kicked out of the military, just an absolute disgrace to society.
yeah.
And I see so many young cats nowadays. My office is full of them and it inspires me. So what made you do it? What made you bet on yourself?
When I was like, I had drugs, not anything too hardcore,
Yeah.
but drinking all the time, very lost person, and I was just chasing, that pro dream for soccer. Honestly, who knows if I would have even ever made it.
Yeah.
But again, it like I know that God had put me in that path,
Yep.
and then I found that obsession, and
Yeah.
so really I put my faith in God first,
Good.
saying like, let's go do something that's completely um, out of the norm, something I've never really done.
Yep.
Work for that company didn't work out. Let's do it for myself because at that point I knew the business A to Z. I'd spent 8 months just
You knew it was a real thing.
yeah, and I had seen like 2 deals close,
Yeah.
and uh, two of them were mine.
Got it.
And I had the proof of concept.
Yeah. Proof of
I
concept.
saw the assignment fees happening, and I knew that this is where God wanted me to be.
Yeah.
And I knew that I felt the obsession. So it's just like, um, if that's where that you're supposed to be,
Yep.
just stay in that space,
Yep.
and eventually you'll come out the other end.
Love that. So you were doing this for How long were you doing this, Connor, before we met
When we met at that first free event that you did
here in Scottsdale?
in Scottsdale. Yeah, again, it's just everything lines up,
Yeah,
perfectly. And I'd actually found out about that from a couple other guys of a previous community I was part of. Otherwise, I would have never even been here.
got
So
it.
it's just, when you look back on your life, it's like everything just
Yeah.
falls into
So
place.
you and I met at that first meetup I
Yep.
did here at that house?
Yep. Briefly, we started talking about cold callers. Um, and we had cold callers that weren't performing.
Yeah.
Um, uh, you told me verbatim that I was getting fucked.
Yeah, yeah, you're allowed
Yeah.
to say that on this one.
Okay, cool, cool, cool. Yeah. So you verbatim, you're like, "You're getting fucked."
Yeah,
And then
yeah,
told me how much we would pay for your cold
yeah,
callers and how many leads we'd get. And I was like, "Let's take a shot, it's
yeah,
not going too well." And it was like we were spending half the price to get more leads,
yeah, yeah.
and it worked out,
Love that.
like you guys actually delivered. So I was like, well, if he's delivering in this aspect, hit you up. It was very early on when you were doing your coaching. So you weren't broadcasting it. I was like,
No,
hey, are you doing coaching? And you're like, yeah, I just started. I think there's 10 people in it when we
you're one
started.
of the first fucking
Yeah.
Mohicans, bro.
Yeah. Yeah.
Literally.
It was crazy too when I watched. It went from like 10 people when I first joined to
Yeah.
a month. It was like 100. And I was
Yeah,
like,
it's
holy
gonna
cow.
get crazier right now.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure
Yeah.
I can see the movement. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm glad you're a part of it.
Me too.
So what made you pick working with me in the elite community?
Yeah, it's funny. We were looking at you and a couple other people,
Yeah.
and I just very genuine. You're
Yeah.
very very genuine, and I've said it before. I've told a lot of people that you just and from the first time we met and the
Yeah.
first business that we did, which was just a transaction for the cold callers.
Yeah.
Uh, you delivered,
Yeah.
you know, and you keep it real,
Yeah.
you know.
Keep it really real.
Yeah, you put all your numbers out there,
All the numbers.
and
Yeah.
I knew like, hey, he's doing it still
Yeah.
at a high level, and he's very successful. And yeah, so let's do it.
Appreciate that.
Yeah, of course.
Your partner Lee wasn't as on board.
No, 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 and a lot of people aren't, right?
No.
A lot of people are very skeptical.
Dude, you get online. This is the thing with social media, the internet, and everything. I've been a victim of it. So like I
Yeah,
get it.
same.
Yeah,
Well, yeah,
I get it, man.
yeah,
And it's really hard to get through what's real, what's fake. Even like for me today, I'll get on there. Like the first time I was ever exposed to not even how naive I was is I was living in Fort Lauderdale. I was going to start coaching back in 2019, 2020 when I was going through my lawsuit. And my attorneys were like, dude, you're in no position right now to be putting yourself out on social media right now. You're in the middle of a lawsuit. They're trying to get you for millions of dollars. Like
yeah,
quit showing your shit right now.
right.
But I did a mastermind at my house in Fort Lauderdale. I
Mm,
was living in a 7 million, 10,000 plus square foot house on the water. I had a group of people over, and when this guy walked in my house. He's an influencer online. I'm not going to say his name because
sure.
it's
Yeah,
irrelevant.
yeah.
He walked in my house, and I had pictures of my family, like in the house. And he walks in and he goes, "Dude, is this really your house?" And I was like, "What the fuck are you talking about?"
Yeah,
He goes, "You didn't rent this thing for this mastermind?" And I was like, "No, it's my house."
right.
And he goes, "Holy shit." Like everyone just rents houses and rents cars and takes pictures. And I was like, for me, I was like, holy shit.
Yeah,
I wonder who's real out there.
right.
Like I did not know until that day. I was like, I thought all the fancy houses and cars and shit were all real. And I was exposed right there. I was like, holy shit, dude, this is a dangerous industry for the consumers.
100% it is.
For the consumers, because you get the wrong information, it's going to cost you a shit ton of money and
Yeah,
set you back. You get the right information, and as long as you implement, it's going to set you forward.
right.
So when we met you, You were doing roughly how when I met you, you're doing how much roughly?
Uh, when we met or when we started working
You
as a
you
coach?
yeah, when I started working with you as a coach,
Okay.
how much were you doing then?
We started tracking it then, just on a quarterly basis. We were running on
Quarterly?
like that traction, the book
Yeah,
traction. We
yeah,
were
yeah,
running
yeah.
through that process, which is everybody should read
Yep.
that book for sure. Um, so that quarter had just ended. I think we started working together in July,
Okay.
so it just ended.
So it hasn't even been a year.
But it was no, it hasn't even been a year.
Okay.
We were at $272,000 and some change that quarter
Okay.
before we started working together.
Okay.
Yep,
And then what do the numbers look like today? Because it's wait. And dude, you do more than just just so everybody knows, Connor does more than just wholesaling.
correct,
You flip houses, you have rental properties,
correct. Yeah,
you wholesale.
yep,
You are a real estate investor.
yeah, 100%.
So he started you started off wholesaling
Yep,
and then graduated, and now he is a real estate investor, but you never stopped the machine.
no, and that is so true. Like, and I will tell you right now that when we look back at our numbers, um, the only thing that had really increased was our amount of assignments. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which well, so when we started working together, our
Yeah.
first goal, right? We only signed up for I don't even think you do 3 months now, but
No.
3 months, and, we signed on for 3 months, and we were like, "Hey, we wanna get a team. We want
Yeah.
2 acquisitions managers by the end of the 3 months." And what I absolutely loved was first 4 weeks, you guys had given us everything that we needed. We had 2 acquisitions managers hired that are still with us. They're like brothers to us now.
Yeah.
Um, and then you guys started teaching us even more.
Yeah.
Where a lot of guys, they're like, okay, I've got you for 3 months. We'll accomplish your goal by the end of the 3 months. So then I can tell you, like, hey, but wait, there's
Yeah.
more.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's get you signed on to teach you this, this, and that.
Yeah.
But you guys were just shoving information, into into our faces like a fire hydrant.
Yeah.
We got the team, and then it was like, all right, how do we make them successful?
Yep.
Cool. How do we scale from there? Now you need a dispo guy, and so literally just in those first 90 days, we went from 272,000 in a quarter to like it was like I forget now, but 480 something
Almost
thousand.
doubled it.
Yep. And the only thing that increased was well, we built a team
Yeah.
or 2 acquisitions
Yep.
managers that, they were successful. So we got more contracts,
Yep.
which led to more assignments,
Yep.
right? Which
Yep.
then leads to more cash coming in at a quicker rate.
Yeah.
Flipping is a lot harder to scale.
Of course.
You
Yeah.
have to have a lot of money behind you too.
Yeah.
And a lot of contractors and all of
Yeah.
that stuff. So the scaling part was okay, let's get more assignments.
Yeah.
Because we'd gone kind of more to flip heavy.
There's the one thing I can say about Connor, and everyone needs to pay attention to this, is just because you sign up with coaching doesn't mean it always works out. You have to be willing to implement. And we use Connor like as the poster child of of how to go through a coaching program. And what I mean is, dude, he showed up on every single phone call. He was the first one to raise his hand, and it seemed like he always had 6 questions.
At least, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm running out of
Always.
them now, but
Yeah, he would show up with all these questions, and we were doing were we doing multiple coaching calls back then, or just one a week?
I think it was just one a week, but I was also in your goat gang,
Yeah.
so I'd get like a little bonus one.
Yeah. So, but he would show up every single freaking week with his notebook. He had questions. He'd get the answers. He would go implement. 7 days later, come back with a list of questions. We'd give him answers. He'd go implement and do. He literally did this he still does it today.
Yeah.
Like today. And when he says what happened in 90 days, dude, you kicked ass in 90
Yeah,
days.
it was wild.
Because
was
you didn't
rocket
even
fuel.
have an office, did you? Or did
Yeah, we had an office.
you had an office?
Yep, it was just me and Lee in there though.
But man, when I tell you this dude was an implementer, he would get information, implement, information, implement, information, implement. And it happened super quick for you guys.
Yeah, I did.
Where are you at today?
Today we just had a record month. It was just over 250K.
Let's
Yeah.
go.
Yes, sir.
So, and that was less than a year.
in
You were
less than a
what
year.
you were doing in a quarter, you now do in a month.
Yep, yep. We were actually this is crazy too, and me and Lee were looking at it, and also like props to and a huge thanks to my partners.
Yes,
Those guys are
rock stars.
detrimental, very very elite. I wish Lee could. Yeah, he was sick.
I
But
get it.
yeah. Anyways, um, we were set to close. It was like $330,000 this month.
Bro.
We had a couple get delayed, and then one we lost to an auction, which hadn't really happened to us before. So we learned a lesson there to try and delay them if we know that they're there. And then I can't remember why two others fell out, but we were just sitting there gutted because it was like the first time. I mean, 250 to 330, that's like 80
It's
grand.
an 80 grand hit.
Yeah.
Yeah. We had 1 month, we had over 600 assigned to close.
Wow.
And we ended up funding on like 3 something.
Yeah.
It happens.
It does. And,
It happens.
me and Lee were sitting there, and I looked up at Lee. I go, but bro, we used to not even make 80 grand in
Right.
a month. Like, we would struggle to make 80 grand in a month. And now we're at a level where, hey, 80 grand will fall out, and we're going to
Yeah.
close 250 still.
That is
like
crazy,
that's
bro.
insane. And we had another, so our first 200K months were this year. We had another one that was like 244, I believe, in like January or February. So
I love it,
it's
bro.
getting consistent now.
Yeah,
So
yeah. And
it's
that's
been
with 2 closers.
2 closers. They're absolute animals.
2 closers, 1
One dispo. Yep. Abu just started like 2 or 3 months ago on dispo. It's been like 2 months.
Yeah. I love it, bro.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun.
What would you say right now to anybody out there that is, whether they're in their early 20s, they're down on their luck, they've been seeing this wholesale game out there, and they're
Yeah.
wondering if it's real, and just what would you say to the audience, man?
And I would say, it is 100% scary,
It's
to,
scary.
to jump into this. But if you feel like this is your calling and like this is the chance, because it can absolutely change your life,
Yeah.
um, definitely get in, stay close to Eric, stay close to you, because you are genuine. And it is very, very, very hard to find a good coach.
Yeah.
And if you are following Eric, you've found the best coach in the industry.
Appreciate that, bro.
You, Tony, Shyla have gone above and beyond what any other coach, I think, does in the industry.
Yeah.
It's absolutely insane. Like hopping on calls to help people close deals or save deals or talk to buyers. Tony walking Lucas Gino through his first deal that was
Bro.
100K.
That,
and
that
it's like,
makes me cry sometimes.
I know, it's insane. And think about like, if he hadn't signed up, right, he would have missed that opportunity, or maybe he would have still gotten it, but sold it for 10 grand, and then he had a coach that pretty much walked him through the process and was like, this is how much you can get,
Yeah.
just because, it's just, yeah,
It's
you guys are
crazy.
great people.
Thank you.
So I always tell people that are on the fence, when I run into other wholesalers and they know you, I'm like, dude, join their program, because you're losing money
Yeah.
not joining the program.
Literally, bro.
I promise you. Spend the whatever 10, 20, 30K and go from 0 to 100K a month, or we were at, somewhere around 80 to 100K to now 250K a month. It's like,
It's nuts.
if we hadn't done that, we're losing hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Hundreds of thousands of dollars.
So that's what I would say is get in. I mean, you've got the GOAT gang. That's great for entry level too.
Yeah.
To just be around you, genuine people who are all trying to help each other
Yeah.
grow, and then burn the boats.
Burn the boats.
Yeah.
Dude, when I tell you, you're in the 1% of this industry. I have my eyeballs on so many different businesses and all the coaches and gurus out there. I know all the numbers.
Oh yeah, yeah.
You are in the 1% of this industry.
That's sweet.
And when I say that, I mean that. You're doing more than most people you probably look at online, just so you know.
Yeah.
And the reason is dude, you put in the work. Dude, super proud of you. It's humbling when somebody comes and says, "Hey man, can you help me?" And they bet on me. But really, you bet on yourself, and
Yeah.
to see somebody play it through the way that you've done it, dude, it keeps me so motivated. Like it really does. So like I just want to say thank you for being a part of our lives, being a part of our community.
Of
You're a
course.
staple here, dude. Like everyone in the elite community knows who Connor is. So like I think you're just getting started.
Yeah.
I think you have so much to offer to you're one of the smartest dudes I've met in the community and the industry. You're super analytical, you're tech savvy, you understand sales, you're becoming an amazing leader. So I'm excited to watch you go and pay this forward to the industry
Yeah.
because dude, listen, at the end of the day, there's so many people out there that need help. I mean,
There are.
they desperately need our help.
Yeah, listening to Marvin Ocampo, just say
They
like
need our help, bro.
and he's grown so much.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of people that do need help.
They need our help. So, anybody out there, go follow Connor Leary. You fucking put social media out or no?
Honestly, not right now.
All right.
No,
Well, he's gonna start
I will.
because
I
I've been
will.
telling
Yeah.
him for a while now
Yeah.
to put social media out. But Connor Leary out of Omaha, Nebraska, pay attention to this guy because before you know it, he's going to be putting himself out there. You need to follow him. You need to understand how he does, what he does, why he does it, and you can do exactly what he does. Until next time, y'all. Refuse to Lose podcast. Pick up that phone and start fucking dialing. Hey, what's going on? I want to congratulate you for making it to the end. What does that mean? You're in the 1% club. No one else stuck around. You did. What I want you to do is subscribe. More importantly, comment below. That way I know exactly who you are and we can get to know one another. Every single week, by you turning your notifications on, you're not going to miss the sales training that's going to keep you in this 1% club. Comment below, subscribe. I'm going to see you in the next video. Let's continue to refuse to lose.